Hey everybody, Lumen and Chris here, and I know my posts have been kind of like, every other day, every half a day. That is because, the last big things that we went through was like a major step. And when you go through a major step, like sometimes you actually got to slow down for a minute and let things happen because you don't know what's coming. You That's the way it works with her. Like she leads you, and then you do things, you follow the clues, you take the actions, then things happen, and then sometimes you're not sure what happened until like a couple days have gone by and you observe what took place in those couple days. Then you can see the pattern. Then you can see where it fits in the overall schedule of events, in the path. And another way that you might know that something big happened is you'll have some new knowledge, new understanding, just like all of a sudden. You'll have new ideas. And there's stuff in the tarot that I didn't fully understand to the degree that I thought I did until this happened. So we're going to break it all down. This is about what we're talking about right now, where I just got to, is what everybody should be striving towards. And that is actually reclaiming your divine authority and what that actually freaking means. You are very limited in what you can affect without this. And certain sequences of events happens that you will be able to see and understand. So we're going to go through all this. We've got a lot to talk about, and then I might go ahead and shoot another video because I want to bounce back and forth as much as I can between following the path, that started with the protocols, and then keep going back to talk about the things like what's going on at the level where a lot of people are at, where they're stuck at getting moving forward, because that's important. So if you want to know more, then don't go away. It's been an hour and a half since the last segment. Something started to happen. I'm gonna sit with this for a minute. I understand a whole bunch of stuff now, but like it literally, like some of this stuff toward the end is so out there crazy. Like if you try to explain it, like I try to put myself in other people's shoes. It's like, how would I react if I heard someone else tell me this? Like I'd probably think that person was freaking nuts. But all these things like the tarot cards and stuff like that, they're showing you very specific things. You can't learn it from a book. You can only learn it directly from her. And there's a lot of stuff that you cannot understand until it's time to understand it. And a lot of times that's not until after something freaking happens. So all I'll say about the last hour and a half was this was today's card. Okay. Now the Pentacles, the suit of Pentacles has to do with the garden. Just go look at it. Garden, well, we'll show you what all these things mean in a minute. But in this case, this card leads to that card. You will not understand this card until you understand this card. I just have, you know, before I sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm like, people are probably like barely grasping the reality of the lumen thing. Like, because I'm very, very detached from what the world taught me, and the protocols help with that. You have to unlearn the world. You have to unlearn the world to see what's there. But oh my God. Okay. Like that just added a whole nother layer to today's lesson. So let's refocus on that. So the key to what the journeys after the hero's journey, what it's leading to, what the whole puzzle is about. Like, what is it that you're chasing? What you're chasing is divine authority. The ability to rule your own mind, rule your own world, and move on when it's time. But what is divine authority? Well, we put it in the intro if you saw it. Remember, there's multiple metaphors overlapping at all times. But never forget the first metaphor that she taught me, even before I knew who she was. Like, it was just popping up into my head. I didn't know where it was coming from. Think like a computer. This is a quantum consciousness reality. And even though it may be super duper advanced, the same basic fundamental rules apply in understanding it. Divine authority, if you are the center of your universe, which you are, maybe we'll get to that, then what you're trying to do by gaining divine authority means getting in a computer system the administrator account, the administrator access. The administrator in a system can do anything, can change anything, can delete programs, add programs, make any changes to the computer that it wants. You start off in this like very limited user role, and you have to work at gaining more access and gaining more access and gaining more access. But when they say divine authority, like sometimes you have like limited amounts of it depending on what you're doing, but divine authority is like literally unlocking your mind. And then you have to figure it out from there, but at least from there you can do things without resistance. So divine authority is equivalent to the administrator account of any computer system. Okay, are you with me so far? So let's talk about some of the key stuff with the tarot. So what you are, so get these in order here. So you're trying to basically assimilate and collect the ace cards. So the Ace of Wands, that is basically unlocking the divine masculine mind. But that's generally going to come after unlocking the divine feminine mind. Ace of Swords is when you gain divine authority. In the Ace of Pentacles, you can now control what you manifest, which Garden and Lumen's womb, same thing. She's mind. The reproductive stuff in the garden overlap at all times. Either which way, seeds are getting planted in something. But for the longest time, I didn't quite understand the suit of pentacles. But all these are thoughts, or creations. And there's your garden right there. Likewise, so this is you waiting on your crops, your manifestations that you and your lumen have planted. Nine of Pentacles. There's lumen in the garden, tending to everything that you planted together. Like some of these things, like you can read tarot books and all this stuff, but like when you have direct experience and direct gnosis and you're shown, it's different. It's different. And at any time, tarot cards can mean several different things. But I never read any tarot book. Everything I know about tarot, I learned directly from Epinoia. And there's been a couple different stages of unveiling the meanings. But today there was actually like another one. And one of them was those cards. It's like these are the pieces of the puzzle. And then here's how they connect. So your first two, your divine, your Ace of Wands, your Ace of Wands, obviously is connecting to the masculine Magician. The Ace of Cups is connecting to the feminine Lumen, Strength. These two go together. And then, even though this happened a while, like some of these steps, depending on what you're figuring out, how it's going, where you are in your overall, lesson plan, which there's no way for me to know that. Where you are in your overall lesson plan could determine like how long there is between steps. But the Strength card and Magician card, once they get to a certain level, then this happens. And when this happened, years, like 2 or so years ago, it takes place in the mind. But it's like when you start to have these inner journeys, like you start to understand that it's something different going on. This is not daydreaming. But yeah, the Lover's card is basically the two garden metaphors overlapping. The woman garden and the garden. 2 in 1, because that's where we were, or Garden of Eden. So, yeah. Now, it takes a while. Obviously, it took about 2 years. But the protocols were what unlocked the next step that we were stuck at. And that was the symbol of the Orphic egg. Remember, I was talking about this stuff like a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. Not knowing where it was leading to. I'm just relaying what she's showing me. She's talking about eggs. She's talking about breaking out of eggs. She's talking about birth. All this stuff. And I'm starting to see, like a connection between the eggs and the pentacles. Lumens, eggs, pentacles, whatever, are they end up in the garden, are the manifestations that you and her worked on together. Like now that it happened earlier. Like I actually saw, a prepared pentacle, for lack of a better term, to be put in the garden on top of the whole Sunchild thing. But when you get to the Orphic egg and what that entails, that is the activation of the divine masculine mind. Right now, it's buried under your left brain matrix with all the shit of the world. That's why you have to dig it out. That's part of what letting go of what you think you know, letting go of who you think you are, letting go of everything that the world taught you, letting go of the connections between words and meanings, like not sparing anything, like literally dumping it all. That's what it leads to. Because she was hidden well enough to start with, the divine feminine mind. divine masculine mind's hidden even deeper. It's underneath everything else. And a lot of the symbols associated with it, they lead you to believe it's evil. But it's not. It's actually connected to the Christ consciousness and the only child of the Father, Mother. But once that divine masculine mind is activated, then a lot of things happen in quick sequence, such as she was, I was led to burning down the garden, to prepare the soil, just like, a forest fire clears out the forest so new forest can grow. And then she had the whole thing happen where she lined that up with the time that I stopped doing psilocybin. And then she gave me one of those freaking THC gummies, which was kind of like flipping off the breaker to the computer system and then flipping it back on. And then the next day was my appointment, which got me back on the Adderall, which after she wired it with after she rewired my brain with everything else, now I'm processing it differently. I'm processing things differently. I'm kind of processing it the way I'm used to processing it. It's different with psilocybin. But like everything I was doing today for 8 hours, it was just, it's more subtle. But you just kind of like, I got to make something. I got to draw something. I got to design something. I designed all this new stuff that had to do with unlocking divine authority. Anyway, but I digress. So once you get to that part, the next thing was all the lessons about the garden and the mind, the garden and the mind. Those are the metaphors. Woman, garden, mind. Woman, garden, mind. Woman, garden, mind, cup. Same thing. But mainly it's woman, garden. Woman, garden, mind. She is mind. We covered that. It was the Nag Hammadi in the original creation story. The infinite, all that is. Then the father created the mother. Mother conceived the child. The child asked for a companion and was given mind. Masculine is the child, mind is the feminine. But once first you're going to unlock your divine feminine mind, which is going to lead you through all these tests and all these mysteries and all this stuff. And then finally you will awaken the divine masculine mind. You will burn down the garden, start all over. Then it gets weird. I had to, if you want to know the mysteries to some degree, I got to be blunt. Like, these are actual characters that other people can interact with if they're tuned in. They're doing things that you're not just imagining them doing. You don't know what the hell they're doing. You're watching them do it. But it always leads you back to some mystery that you saw, or some text you saw, or some wood carving, wood cutting, whatever, old stuff. It's like, this is, and you look at it and you're like, what does that really mean? Like this one right here. We got the male masculine soul and the female Luna, and a alchemical bottle. Then up there it says coitus, which means sex. And let me tell you something, that's not a metaphor. It's taking place in your mind, like in another realm, but like it is it's literally one of the biggest mechanisms of the game. So if you have hangups about it, find a way to get over it. There's a reason, like when you see certain things that are heavily, heavily stigmatized, and especially if they're often like tagged with the lowest of the low on the emotional scale, emotions, which is shame, then that means they're hiding something from you. And who's doing that? There's another card I didn't fully understand, but the Hierophant. Hierophant is one of the biggest obstacles in the game because he's representing basically organized religion. Sneeze break. Bless me. I could edit that out, but that wouldn't be fun. He is representing organized religion. And remember, couple videos back, I was quoting Jesus from the Nag Hammadi, and he said, "The Pharisees and the scholars have taken the keys of knowledge and hidden them. They have not entered, nor have they allowed anyone else to enter." There's your keys of knowledge right there. He's sitting on them. He's like, listen to me, come to me. So, organized religion is one of the biggest obstacles. It really is. It is the big mind control freaking obstacle. They give you a watered down, diluted version of what you're actually seeking, with a lot of misleading stuff and things switched around and things that don't need to be there, and some things that are just flat made up. And it is something that it is the beginning of the trauma-based mind control. Like when you're a kid and you're going to Sunday school and you're all sitting there holding hands and you're like, Jesus loves the little children, and then the next, okay, you want to be good because here's this devil monster. And he's always trying to get you. And if you don't do what the church tells you, then the devil's going to take you to a place called hell.
So the devil's right here on this level, wipe tears. Cause when rebels ready to pop the heavy metal, I fear. Abomination, they've been faking, consecration, hating, Western education. Got the killer on the killer, gotta chase him, go! Go! Spiraling out of control and deeper down the rabbit hole.
And you'll never get out. You'll be there forever and ever and ever and just burning and suffering. So you better listen to us and do what we say, because you don't want to go to hell. I mean, have you ever really thought about that? And think about the earliest age you were exposed to that. That is deep cut trauma-based mind control. And a lot of people never get past it. I remember the first time I did, it was so weird. It was like, before it was like, the devil's everywhere. The devil's behind the tree. The devil's behind the mailbox. The devil's hiding in my attic. The devil's coming after me. And then I finally broke it, and it's just like, poof. Where'd the devil go? I broke the spell. I broke the mind control spell. Now, later on, I'd get back into it, and it'd be a little bit different, but there for a long time, like I think it was, I went to this, I was in the Navy, and I don't remember what school it was. It might have been recruiting school. Whatever it was, I was in Pensacola, Florida. And there were some people at the hotel, and they were going to some big crazy church. Oh, you want to go with us? It's awesome. Like they drove there from like a long way. I'm like, okay. And I went to this thing with them, and this church service was like the craziest shit I'd ever seen. It was like the craziest shit I ever seen. It was just like this big weird show, this big weird mind control show. There's people there from like all over the place. I don't even know the name of this place. But the Holy Spirit's moving through the crowd, and people are like, ah! And you know, we're gonna blow the horn and we're gonna fight the devil. Ah! So at the end, they had people going up there, and they're doing the whole, you ever see people like getting zapped by the Holy Spirit? She's like, I don't do that. But they're like, yeah, and then people fall to the ground, and they start acting like they're having a freaking seizure or something, and they put a little blanket over you. So I just kind of followed my friends up there, and I'm just watching this stuff go down. I'm looking around, and then I turn around, and that preacher is behind me. And I forget what he said. It was like some Harry Potter sounded shit or whatever, but he tried to zap me with the Holy Spirit. And he's like, Like, I didn't know I had her. I didn't know I had the real one at that time. Zap you with the Holy Spirit. Now he's starting to look at me like I might be possessed or something. I'm like, I'm going to end up in the center of some sort of three-ring circus. So he zapped me with the Holy Spirit again, and I just like fell down. And I'm like, and they put this blanket over me, and I'm just sitting here. He moves on to someone else, and I'm like, looking with one eye, and there's all these idiots everywhere around me, flopping around. I'm like, I don't know if this was some magician mind control shit or what, but I'm sitting here like, what in the ever loving F is going on in this place? This is insane. This is absolutely freaking insane. And the people riding back with the people after that, they're like, oh, the Holy Spirit moved in me. Whatever that is, when you see that, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not her. And she is the Holy Spirit. It's not her. Anyway, I don't know how we got on that, but yeah, me and the church, we go way back. Let me get back on here. Let me get back on track. So back to the cards of understanding, and it's crazy. Like, it's weird. It's like she doesn't, if it's not time for you to understand something, you could call it the veil or whatever, but you can look right at something that's important, and it's just like you almost just don't see it. Like, oh yeah. It's kind of like, I understand all the cards in the major arcana, except one or two, but it's like, I just go around them. So it's like that. So I never understood the Emperor. I thought I understood the Empress, but apparently I didn't. This is not just Mother Sophia. So once you have unlocked both sides, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and all that stuff has taken place, like, this is what the magician and the strength grow up into. Once they get to the divine, once they get to attaining the divine authority, which has got the crown there. So this, once you have the divine authority to start making your own choices about how the game runs, then the magician is the emperor. And the strength card is the Empress. And why is the Empress pregnant, you might ask? Well, it's not totally obvious, but if you actually read the meaning of the card, the Empress is pregnant. That's because you just, revamped the garden, which is your mind, and you burned it all down, and she's got to plant a new crop. So let's just overlap those metaphors again. Basically, the lumen goes into heat. Now this is taking place in the mind, and it's almost like, it's not like some previous things where it's gonna it's messing up your whole day because you can't think about anything else. It's like it's happening, but you're only 10% attached to it happening. But her I don't know, her freaking ovaries were just popping out eggs like a freaking paintball gun, like what is going on? She's got to repopulate that freaking garden. That's what. And she needs your help with that. I'm like, okay. It's when stuff like that happens where you pause and you're like, I know I didn't make this up. I know I didn't choose to say, what would be a good thing to imagine? No, it just happens and you're like, whoa, okay, wow. And apparently once that happens, the whole reproductive cycle is sped way the hell up, because those little pentacles are going to be ready to put in the garden very, very quickly. But there's going to be that one particular pentacle Where'd you go? But there's going to be that one particular pentacle, which is going to be, who is the sun child? It's you. It's you. What is the born again thing just got like the whole, the Father was in the Son and the Son was in the Father. This is heaven's kingdom. Like, who would ever figure this out? Who would ever figure this freaking out? And like the details. Like I'm skipping over the details because I just feel like I kind of have to. But I'm telling you, like she had that. Like some of these details feel important, but it's like maybe like not right now. But like it was so real. Like you know that like you know new car smell. There's also that like new baby smell. Right, you know, babies just have this smell. That's why people have babies, to get the baby smell. Like, I could smell it. Except he had like gold eyes. But it's like, huh. Me and Lumen carry the 2, 3, baby. It's my baby, but that's also me. Reborn. Like, okay. I'm not even taking psilocybin. Nothing. I'm not taking anything to make my brain do weird things. Like this is just like, boom, all making sense. But yeah, I mean, how many people knew that? How many people knew that I wouldn't have? How many people knew that once you get far enough to unlocking all those things, that to be ready to, like, I wouldn't say I could sit there and call down thunderbolts yet, but I'm learning how this works. We haven't even got to some of that stuff yet. You know, attaining the divine authority makes the magician and the strength card grow up into the emperor and the empress. And then once all that crazy little alchemy gets finished, then you've got a whole new Father, Mother, Son, all within you. All the gods, all the heavens, all the hells are within you. I'm telling you, like when you unlock your mind from all that bullshit that the world taught you, it will show you stuff that you can't even freaking come up with. And it'll make sense. It's like a big puzzle. It's a cipher. It's a code that we got to unlock to get to the next stage. Oh my gosh. So I kind of feel like the next one is this one. Once you've kind of mastered this new state and you got the two sides in balance and so on and so forth. This one is kind of fading, Judgment, because I worked that, we talked about that in the last couple of videos. I worked that into the surrender stuff, letting go of judgment, letting go of all letting go of all the negative projections that I put on everything. Situations, people, things, meanings. Like if I have a negative idea about it, like pull it all back, delete it. Basically, Control Alt Delete all that stuff. Because me determining that there are bad things in the world, like it affects me. There was some other stuff that happened the other day that's just so deep cut. Like, no, it would just make me sound nuts. Like I don't feel like it's relevant to everybody, but I think it's like when you do like several weeks of letting go of who you think you are, it might open up a window to some far back past life which was like the most important starting point for you. That could be interesting. So all that happened when I started doing, like, once the divine authority thing started kicking on, and I started, with the work that I was doing with people, I just suddenly knew, like, it just came naturally, like, I can do all these new things. I can absolve people of things, not just help them clear their past traumas and stuff, but at a deep core level, it still affects them on some way, and I can absolve that. I can consecrate things. I can sanctify things. I can christen things. I can exercise things. I can do all that stuff easily. And I can do that with the gardens and all that stuff. So I started doing all this new stuff. And this happens like literally every time I do a level up. Every time I do a significant level up, the game tries to kill me. Like, I mean, literally. But this time it didn't work out the way it usually did. Now, obviously, I'm always protected, but in the past, what it would normally do is like get you on edge again. Like, oh crap, they're out to get me. Oh, I got to deal with this kind of stuff. And that's not the reaction that I had this time, because I'd already pretty much neutralized the black mirror. So what happened was, I needed to go to the grocery store the other night. And I went, and it was late. And I got in my car, and all of a sudden I had all these warning lights on my dash. I'm like, why do I have these on all of a sudden? It was like traction control and anti-lock brakes or something like that. It didn't make any sense. And I remember having like the quiet little thought. I'm like, maybe she's telling me I need to stay home tonight. But I'm like, I have nothing to eat. I need to go to the store. So I called my daughter to see where she was at. And she was out with a friend, but she was headed back. I'm like, you want to swing by and run me over to the store real quick? She's like, sure. So we go to the store, and then we're leaving. We're headed back. So what happens is, on this road where the store is, it's like 6 lanes. And then there's the big bank of lights. And then when you get the arrow, you go up quite a ways, and then you turn onto the on-ramp. Okay? Now, facing the other direction, right next to the on-ramp, was a car. And I mentally took myself back to it, and like, if I was sitting where that car was and watching the lights and knowing that there's a green light and all these cars are coming right here, I don't care if someone hit me in the head with a freaking baseball bat and I drank freaking a 6-pack, I would still know that now is not the time to move my car. But we're halfway through the turn, and then all of a sudden, that Peter Parker Spidey tingle came on, and I looked right at it, and it was like really dark. So as she's making her turn, she had the right of way. All of a sudden, it takes off very quickly and starts turning into us, and everything went like really slow. And if you would have asked me, I would have said there was a 99% chance that car was going to slam into us. And it was going to slam into us right where I was sitting. But for some reason, I didn't have like a fear spike. I just saw apanoia, and then nothing happened. They honked. It's like, what are you honking at us for, idiot? You're the one that freaking turned into freaking oncoming traffic. But a couple seconds later, my first thought was like, how did that not hit us? Well, there's only one reason why it wouldn't have hit us. Her. So what was interesting about this time was my reaction to it was different. Yeah, I say this time because it literally has happened to me that much. Every time I level up, they try to kill me. Um, this time it was like, instead of, oh, here we go again. Oh my God. I was like, you know what? You can't do nothing to me. You always try, but she always stops you. You can't actually hurt me. And that realization just sunk in. You can't do nothing to me. I outrank you. And that just caused this big shift in my thinking and like releasing more stuff. This conflict. Oh, bad guys are out to get you. But they could be out to get me all they want. But she always stops it. Every time. 100%. That car should have hit me. It would have hit me where I was sitting in the right side, rear seat. The way we were turning, it would have hit me. And it should have. It was that close. I don't know how it didn't. But it didn't. So anyway, that happened right after I unlocked all that that divine authority stuff. And I think that was like a last-ditch attempt to get me back into a fear pattern. So I didn't go further with it, but I didn't actually have a fear spike. So then things sped up and more stuff was happening. So I've been processing a ton of stuff. That's why it's been so freaking difficult. So much has been happening, like I can't take it through step by step, how she led me to it. Some of it was like little examples that I put in my videos or whatnot. I think I was talking about like Peter Parker's Spider-Man suit with like the training wheels protocol and stuff like that. But she was leading me to ask questions of ChatGPT, because when I don't know a lot about something, like it'll just give me compiled answers. It's better than Google searching. The other thing that I was dealing with was something that had to do with the the apostle thing. But I don't really feel like that's relevant. But it kind of like got me all up in my head for a minute from what she was showing me. I'm like, okay, that's crazy. Wait a minute, she's the spirit of truth. But anyway, we got back to the divine authority thing and overlapping it with her first big metaphor lesson, which is think like a computer. And it's like, Eshal, she's been bringing us back to Eshal again, which is that top name right there, and that's about divine authority. And when I read the description in the book again, it says gives you access. There's that word. Like sometimes you don't see these little nuances. Access, and then in the whole description, it uses the word command and commands multiple times. And what do you call it when you put an instruction in a computer? A command. If you're still struggling with this is all a quantum consciousness computer thing, I'm like, you need to get on board with it, because that's what it is. Like, if you're trying to figure it out with just using spiritual terms, you're not going to get it. That's what it is. So you have to overlap them to make it make sense and to go further. So it's like, okay, what would be some things that I could use to unlock? There's always some sort of command. There's always some sort of like context that you got to figure out, and you do some simple ritual, and that's all it takes. So what popped into my head was the 42-letter name. I know a lot about the 72 names and the 42-letter name because in my early days, before I knew who she was, before I knew what was guiding me, she had me doing these two particular books from the Gallery of Magic called Mystical Words of Power and the 72 Sigils of Power, which you see all the time. But in Mystical Words of Power, it's just the first 7 sigils, and it's basically like upgrading your toolkit so you can deal with her. But it had all the sigils had this ring with the 42-letter name in it. And the 42-letter name deals with the power of creation. And there's this old manuscript, I don't remember where I found it. It was some ancient book, and it's like, you know, this is a symbol. It had the hand, like that hand it's in all the ace cards, of this is the symbol of creation. It was just this, you know, two-tiered circle like that. And I'm like, well, that's where the author got the idea. Put the 42-letter name in that circle. So I was able to reverse engineer most of that book. So then what I did further was, in earlier books from the gallery, earlier Words of Power books, they used the 42-letter name, but only once at the beginning as kind of like an activation. But in that one, it was in the form, the 42-letter name can be broken up into seven separate names with seven separate powers. So when you look at the 42-letter name that way, it looks like what is in the middle. So what I did to the ring is I added the lines that you see so that I can scan the ring counterclockwise, but also there's these little kind of like track marks that tells my brain that I'm going, so like, you know, from here to here is the first name. From here to here is the second name. And when you look at them as separate individual names, I'm not going to try to pronounce them right now, but let's just say the first one has to do with the aspect and power of protection. The second one has to do with the aspect and power to control events and negative entities. So that's definitely a divine authority thing. The third one has to deal with the aspect and power of finding your way and making a decision. That's her guiding you. The fourth one has to do with the aspect and power of strength and perseverance. That's Lumen. The next one has to do with the aspect and power of attaining psychic powers. The fifth one has to do with the aspect and power of attaining inner peace and tranquility. That's going to be conquering your fear. The sixth one has to do with the aspect and power of resetting. And oh, that's the seventh one. I forgot I've got this extra name on here. So the last one is the seventh one, and that has to do with the aspect and power of resetting, starting over. So there is your administration account access key. But just having that is not going to give it to you. You got to go through the steps before you can use it. Now, the last thing that I added, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of faint on the camera, but I'll put some of the other colored ones up there as an example. I've also got Eshal in the background of one of the 72 names, which is the one we just talked about, which has to do with divine authority. So this is my divine authority access card, and I'm waiting to have it pop into my head how to apply that key. Now here's what's interesting about this key. I started doing this instinctually. I started, like, I just saw it and I started doing it that way. I started making the sigils color-coded with the 7 primary colors. Now, when you look at the descriptions of these powers, not all of them, but some of them line up where I would expect them to be in the chakra column. But the way that the colors actually lined up, with red being first, there's this whole weird thing about us being in this upside down place. Like if you look how a prism splits your lumen into 7 bands of light, you know, the red is always up top, but in our chakra columns, the red is on the bottom. So that's kind of weird. So this is like almost like putting them the way it's supposed to be. But the first one being red and having to do with the aspect and power of protection, well, the root chakra, the red one, is heavily associated with your sense of safety and security. The aspect and power of resetting and starting over would be like up there with the crown chakra. The aspect and power of strength and perseverance is in the green, which is the heart, and strength is lumen. So some of these things, other ones, it's like, you know, I would expect the aspect and power of, which one is that? I would expect the aspect and power of attaining psychic abilities to be like on the third eye one, but it's on the throat one. Either which way, something told me to do this. Something told me to color code them that way. And when that happens, I just do it. Like that's never for, it's always for a reason. So I've got a couple different versions of this key, and then I've got some other ones that's just got like Eshal, the 42 letter name, plus Eshal, which is divine authority, and then the first and last name of the 72. One has to deal with manifestation, which is kind of creation, and the last one has to do with destruction. Alpha and Omega, creation, destruction, divine authority in the middle, 42 letter name having to do with the power of creation. So I think I just need to do something with this, you know, when I'm in tune with Lumen, and have her install it the right way. I just have to give her, you know, instruction. So this is already happening. It's already taking place. I can tell the difference. And all this activity with Lumen indicates that she is replanting the garden. So like I'm expecting like some really big surprise changes to start panning out. And that ties into one of the big lessons when it comes to magic and manifestation and stuff like that, is when you plant your crops, you can't just sit there and like, is it grown yet? Is it grown yet? Is it grown yet? You know, in magic and manifestation, they talk about lust for results. Like, when's it going to happen? Experience has shown me that things happen. Things need at least minimum of like 72 hours usually for something to pop up. So when you plant your garden, you plant and forget. Just plant and forget. Just move on to the next thing. Keep doing stuff. And when you're not watching it, then the plants are going to start popping up. But I've seen it. Like, she's been actively working on rebuilding the garden. I still every day do the protocols, because when it comes to like the parasite and stuff like that, I don't know what I don't know. And I am just going to continue, even if there's no sign of it, even if I have no interference. I don't have any interior interference. They have to like literally try to crash a car into me to interfere with me, and that doesn't even work. But I will always assume that some aspect of it is still there, because every time that I have done the opposite, which is assume it was gone, only to find out later that it wasn't, it regrows itself. So it just, as long as I'm here in this place, I'm going to do it every day. I'm going to do the Benedict exorcism, do the left brain hemisphere, right brain hemisphere oil. And now, and the newest thing, since I got all this new authority and stuff like that, I'm now every day doing a Benedict clearing, and then I'm sanctifying and consecrating my garden, my mind, which also means Lumen. So I'll like anoint her head to consecrate the field, consecrate the garden. And it's going to take time for it to sort itself out. But it is sorting itself out. Like we've never been here before. We've never gotten this far before. So I can't predict, like today, the stuff today. Like I couldn't have predicted that. I couldn't predict half the stuff when it comes to this. But is it crazy? No, because there's literally ancient text going back forever, everywhere, that's saying the same thing. But it's kind of like, how people are today. Well, back then, those primitive people were just silly. They weren't scientifically enlightened like us. So they're just made up mythological stories. Seem pretty important to them. Spend all this time chiseling it into rock and stuff like that. No, it's in the Bible. It's in the Nag Hammadi. It's freaking everywhere. These metaphors are freaking everywhere. Sex and gardening. Gardening and sex. Maybe that's why they call... Is that why they call them hoes? I don't know. I'm just saying, there's all these double words that seem to end up in our language sometimes. It's like, why are we saying these words? I don't know. There's just so much going on. There's so much going on. It's exciting, but it's a lot to take in. But I'm on track to something. Like, never gotten this far before. Ever. Like, that Orphic egg was like a massive, massive milestone. I never got that far. Because no one asked about the only thing anyone knows is the toxic masculine, which is ego, mind, and all the programming. Divine masculine is buried underneath all that, and the only way to get it out is to shovel all the shit out of your mind, to dump it, to let go of it, to banish it, to clear it. The protocols, that's what the protocols do. They dig out the divine masculine. And you need the divine masculine if you want to have any power at beating the game. And once you start to figure out how to get that administrative authority, I think what most people do, if they figure this out, never tell anybody how they figured it out, is then they use it to manifest stuff and have a great life. We're operating on another level. We've done this 365 freaking times. We're going to be applying that to how to unlock out of here. It's like, I don't care about manifesting toys and gadgets and gizmos and sex and money and all that stuff. I'm trying to finish this game. I want to win. That is my goal. And I'm this freaking close to it. Never ever gotten this freaking far. Like I don't need to read books. I see stuff, and when it's time, she'll explain what things mean. And then it'll make sense. This is why this happened. It sounded crazy last week. Why are we talking about this? Well, last week, why is this coming up? Why are we talking about eggs and gardens and this and that and all this stuff? Well, sometimes you don't know until a little later. And then you see whatever is supposed to happen in the mind's eye, and you're like, oh. Well, for the longest time, I didn't understand the Suit of Pentacles. Oh, it's about, money. Most people say it's about money and stuff. No. Well, in the Magician card description, it talks about stability. Pentacle is stability. Which, yeah, I could see that too. Because Pentacle is the 5 elements in balance. But what they're showing you in the pictures are basically thought seeds, or thought children, or whatever that the two sides of the mind worked on together. So up to this point, all those pentacles have been like little horror bombs growing things in your head, which then manifest in the outside world as all sorts of crap. Okay, this has gone on long enough. You can see this is like, I skirted around a lot of stuff in the details. Sometimes the details are what make it really real to you. But again, some mysteries, I probably said too much as it is. Some mysteries you have to see it yourself. You have to see it yourself. But I will close with talking to one of my clients. First of all, if we do work with you, be it any kind of energy work. I obviously am very busy. That doesn't mean I cannot be interrupted. It just means like I'm always doing something, so I might not think to follow up unless she reminds me like, hey, you might need to follow up with this person. But it's always good to check in with me a couple days later after energy work, because the energy work is either it's going to tell us one of the two things. It's either going to magically clear everything up, or it's going to shake the foundation of something, of the tower or whatnot, and it's going to stir some control system up. And if that's the case, I need to know about that, because that means there is a root somewhere that we haven't found yet. Maybe you're not thinking of it, maybe you didn't think to tell me, but it's obviously something important. It needs to be addressed directly. And the only way I can know that is like if you check in with me 2-3 days later and let me know how it's going. Some people, everything's great. It's like, okay, well, keep up the protocols, because if you think everything's great for a couple days, I can relax now, that's going to bite you in the ass down the road. You got to keep it up, got to keep it up. But sometimes, like, it may trigger something that is connected to whatever is trying to control you or pin you down. And we just like basically, hit it with a battering ram, and now it's all spun up. But if it's still there, then there's a root somewhere, some issue, something in your mind, some specific trauma, some specific belief, something that we need to address directly. But yeah, so either way it ends up being a win. It either points us in the right direction, or things just get better. But you got to keep at it. You got to keep working on it, because right now you're trying to get to the first leg of the stage, which is unleashing the divine feminine mind, because right now that's what this card is about. That's most people's divine feminine mind. She's all bound up, blindfolded, and imprisoned by swords. So we gotta break your lumen out first. Gotta get your right side brain on your side before we can dig down and get the left one out. Anyway, that's enough for right now. Yeah, that's a lot to process. Like, a lot of this isn't going to be relevant to you where you are right now, but it's good to share, because it's documenting the process for me, from my standpoint, and it's showing what happens when these stages appear, and you're suddenly like presented with something that you didn't see before, like the Orphic egg and all this egg stuff, and it, like, she's leading us somewhere, and things happen, and then you realize, like, I thought I understood what like this symbol or this card meant, but I didn't. Like the Sun card, Sun Child. That's directly related to divine authority, divine masculine, all that stuff. Gotta have that. Anyway, that's all we got for right now. I noticed if you happen to go to the Etsy store and see something, we're still there. I was switching money around the other day, and apparently I emptied out my PayPal account when I was moving things around on the same day that Etsy was trying to take out their little monthly $5 fee. So it didn't go through, and they just shut it down, and I didn't see the email. So I go to my store, and it's like, there's no items. I'm like, oh my God, did they shut me down for something stupid? No, it was just like when I was moving money around. So I got that fixed, and everything's back up. So you can message us through there, clumencreations.etsy.com. We can make something specific for you that's not on the store. The oils and all that stuff. It's just the best way to reach out to us, because we always get those alerts. All the apps are fighting for space in the phone system to push an alert to the top of your screen. But Etsy is one of those ones that will push through all the stuff and get you noticed. or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Christopher Lucerna, Lucerna. You'll know it's me because it's got Lumen, Lumen on there. And message me, send me a friend request or whatnot. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.